episode of the Baseline Jumper, and here with me today, overwhelmed by emotion, is Nets fan supreme, Jason Goldstein. Jason, how you feeling today?
Wow, Ben, that was a really nice intro. You should maybe switch off and let you do that more often. Dude, I said to you before the show, I don't know if I can do an intro. I am emotional. I am overcome with joy at what has taken place in the NBA over the last 40, let's make it 50 hours. Dude, this is a free agency bonanza, Ben. This might be our biggest show yet. There is so much to talk about. But first, I will be a nice human being and I will ask, how are you?
I'm doing so great, and it's great to live vicariously through you in the last few days. I think where we have to start the show, Jason, is of course the question I always ask are, where were you when X happened? Where were you? We have a new one. So America, you're gonna get to hear, Jason, tell America, where were you when Kevin Durant decided to become a Brooklyn Net?
So everybody knew that 6 o'clock on Sunday was when everything was starting to go down. So I took a nice day. I went down the New Jersey shore, went to this cool little beach bar called Donovan's Reef. I'm plugging them because they were wiped out by Hurricane Sandy and they rebuilt better than ever. It's in Seabright. So we went there for the day and left our car parked at a Bye Bye Baby because my buddy, his kid's turning one, and I had to go shopping for the gift. So we get in the Uber. We get back to my car, and I see the Woj tweet. Kevin Durant is committed to signing with the Brooklyn Nets. I already was used to the fact that Kyrie was coming. This has been talked about. But when it came from Woj's fingertips and NBA Twitter exploded, I'm in an Uber holding back tears. My girlfriend is laughing at me. We go into Bye Bye Baby. My phone's dying. I am shopping for baby toys while I am refreshing Twitter. Phone's draining. It was a whirlwind. I'm at the cash register with tears in my eyes. And I will never forget where I was when I found out Kevin Durant committed to signing with the Brooklyn Nets. It's just an unbelievable feeling. I'm emotional. I know that people who listen to this podcast tell me I'm a Nets homer, but as a Nets fan, I have been through a lot. I've been a Nets fan for a little over 20 years now. I've seen highs, 2 straight NBA finals when I was a preteen. I've seen the lows of lows. A 12-win season in 2010 where they didn't even get the top pick. I've seen them move to Brooklyn, make a bunch of ridiculous win-now moves, get completely fleeced by the Celtics, gave up their entire draft cover.
Shouts to
Sean
Billy
Marks, yeah, Billy King's name will never be mentioned on Baseline Jumper again after that, Benjamin. Sean Marks inherits this team, laughing stock of the NBA. Comes in, hires a coach in Kenny Atkinson, preaches culture, preaches patience and not skipping steps. They somehow turn 3 NBA players on their roster, the only 3, Brook Lopez, Thaddeus Young, and Bojan Bogdanovic, into a young core that included D'Angelo Russell, who we'll get to, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, got some steals from Europe in John Musa, Rodions Kurucs, took a bunch of guys off the scrap heap, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, and created a young core that Kevin freaking Durant and Kyrie Irving wanted to be a part of. I mean, I still can't get it in my head that Kevin Durant in 2 years will be suiting up in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. Kyrie Irving will be suiting up this fall. They even got DeAndre Jordan to come along. I'm overcome with emotion. I'm just so happy as a Nets fan that finally they are getting their due. They did everything the right way, and this might be, Ben, one of the most impressive turnarounds in recent sports history. 3 years ago, they cleaned house. 2 years ago, they had the worst record in the league. Last year, they make the playoffs. And now they have 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA. I mean, what do you think about all this? Because I just talked for 10 minutes.
I think what the first thing that this starts with is that we look, and this has come in pieces. We had about 9 years ago, the Nets are purchased by Mikhail Prokhorov. I guess that was in 2009. And then 2010, they decide they're going to try and make a move. They get Jay-Z involved. They're trying to get big free agents. They're unable to get Carmelo Anthony. They eventually get Darren Williams. They fail to get Dwight Howard. After that, they make a trade for Gerald Wallace, which is debatably, I think you could make the case that it's almost as bad as the trade for uh, the Celtics trade because of the fact that there was no upside. Their upside was getting Gerald Wallace, and the downside was that they lost an All NBA player in Damian Lillard. So I think that one is almost as bad. And then after that, they moved to Brooklyn, and then the disastrous Celtics trade comes. And from there, when Sean Marks gets handed the keys, I think you can make the case, Jason, that it was the worst situation in NBA history. They didn't own their own picks. They had no talent really left on the roster to speak of. And first thing that he does, he trades Kevin Garnett for Thaddeus Young. Then that was right before he got there. Sorry, right before they got there, they get Thaddeus Young. His first move is to trade Thaddeus Young and get the pick that becomes Karis LeVert. Makes the deal to get D'Angelo Russell. Makes a few more moves along the way. I mean, there's some good and some bad there, but most of them were good. I mean, the only one that I think you could kind of have an issue with is the Allen Crabbe trade after he goes and gets him. But he ends up making that trade to get rid of Allen Crabbe that I was a little critical of, and now it works out perfectly because now the once upon a time New Jersey Nets, now the Brooklyn Nets, have two of the top 10 or 15 players in the league and have become, Jason, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Nets are a marquee franchise.
They're a destination. And so in the last, I guess, 2 days that this news broke, all I'm hearing in New York media outlets is not a triumph for the Nets. And I texted you about this because it's frustrating me. Everything's, well, the Knicks ruined this. They should have been going to the Knicks. Now the Knicks are at rock bottom. We're not going to do that here. We're going to spend some time on the Knicks. We'll talk about James Dolan. We'll talk about the Hall. But from what I've been reading, seeing, hearing across NBA circles, this plan was in motion for months. Once Kyrie and KD both saw Brooklyn's stability, their roster ready to compete for a playoff spot, and just the overall culture and some very good recruiting by Spencer Dinwiddie, who took a class with Irving at Harvard last fall. So this has been in the works for a long time. And you didn't hear a word about it. I mean, just Saturday night, this past Saturday, there was talk of Kawhi and KD teaming up in LA. That just shows how much all of these pundits and gas bags know. They know nothing. Because all along it was Sean Marks, it was Spencer Dinwiddie, all these guys operating in the shadows and orchestrating one of the greatest free agent coups in recent NBA history. Ben, do you know who the previous best free agent signed by the Nets was?
Ooh, man. Travis Outlaw?
So I did originally think that. It was a guy named Armin Gilliam back in 1993. Travis Outlaw was probably, top 5 on that list. But I said this on last week's show. Every marquee player the Nets have had, they've traded for. Irving, Kidd, Carter, Joe Johnson, Darren Williams, Pierce, Garnett. They even had Dwight Howard for like 2 days. So everything was a trade. The fact that they got, in 3 days' time, KD and Kyrie to put pen to paper once the moratorium is lifted on July 6th, it is going to feel so surreal. So I know we got a long show. We're going to cover other teams, but as a longtime Nets fan, everything I've been through watching this team, the ups, the downs, mostly downs, we have to give Brooklyn their due. And I'm making Sean Marks my hero of the week.
Absolutely.
Because so far, as reported by several media outlets, mostly Wostradamus, the Nets are bringing in Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, DeAndre Jordan, where KD and Kyrie are both taking less money in year one to fit Jordan's contract in. Then they added some depth, Garrett Temple. And right before we started recording, the Nets reportedly reached a deal with Wilson Chandler. Because I've been saying to you since yesterday, I said, the Nets still need a stretch four. And I'm watching all these stretch fours go off the market. Jeff Green went to Utah. Frank Kaminsky went to Phoenix. They bring in a guy like Wilson Chandler, who's had some success on winning teams. And he will get a lot of Kevin Durant's minutes until he's ready to play. So this is the kicker, though. He also got a protected first round pick from the Warriors in what will end up being the D'Angelo Russell sign and trade. So you get 5 players along with 2 draft picks, Taurean Prince, getting rid of Crabbe's contract, and a protected first round pick all in the last month. I mean, I know Utah's having a good offseason, and Philly and Masai Ujiri did great things in Toronto, but how do you not love what Sean Marks has done? He took a bare cupboard. The Nets now have all their first round picks moving forward. Well, they don't have theirs next year, but they have Phillies. They have a protected first from Golden State, a ton of seconds, and with this Nets team as constructed right now, not even going into the luxury tax. That's amazing to me. I know that ownership is willing to go into the luxury tax if need be, but you have a team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and you're not a tax team. I mean, that's just incredible.
I mean, you left out the part that they're getting a first round pick from the Warriors for D'Angelo Russell.
No, I said that.
I mean, you mentioned that they traded him, but they're getting a first round pick for a guy who they had no chance of signing. I mean, that is like, that sums up Sean Marks in a nutshell. I mean, the fact that he was able to turn a guy who they really had no chance of keeping. I mean, it was a guy who, at this point they knew he was gone once they got Durant and Irving, and they're still going to end up getting a first round pick. Now, I have not seen the details of what that first round pick will be.
It's very heavily protected. That's all we know. I think we'll get a full disclosure like once the teams announce these transactions, but I think it's going to be very heavily protected. It might be a late first, could end up turning into 2 seconds, probably one of those type deals.
Yeah, I mean, it's we'll have to see what happens, but I mean, just to get anything for a guy who you were otherwise getting nothing for is incredible. The guys they got are great. I do have to. I mean, let's break these down one by one. So, I think when you look at the piece here for KD, obviously this is going to be really interesting. I mean, the Nets are going to have a very interesting season ahead of them because KD, we just don't know. I mean, the Achilles can be a 12-month injury. I've heard some things recently that, a lot of people say it can be more like a 9 or 10-month injury. 9 or 10 months will take them till April or March or April, something like that. If it's a 12-month injury, we're talking basically the finals next year. If he can come back in 10 months, that's a chance to play in the playoffs. And the Nets should be a playoff team. I think they're probably top 5. We'll have to see how everything shakes out. I think if the Raptors lose Kawhi, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, they have a chance, Jason. I mean, I think the very easy thing to do here is to compare the Nets to the team that they were last season and just say, oh, sure, this is what they are. I mean, there's some calculus here. This isn't simple arithmetic of adding and subtracting. I mean, the first thing is Kyrie Irving is a lot better than D'Angelo Russell. The Nets made Russell look good, but they're not the same tier of player. They're just not. And Kyrie Irving's just a lot better than he is in a lot of different ways. So there's that. There's LeVert's health. And then there's the fact that they're losing a lot of veterans. So these things are going to kind of point in different directions. So it's going to be interesting to see there. And I think it's going to be a really interesting thing for the Nets to see what they get with the other guy they got, which is Kyrie Irving, Jason, because I think that is going to be a really fascinating kind of fit because we just saw him best player on his team, and he didn't handle it really well. And part of that was the team he was around, part of that was the coaching, part of that was a lot of different things. I mean, there's a million reasons why it didn't work. The question is, how is he going to fit in this locker room, Jason? And can he be the guy on this team while Durant is out? Now, I say that I think talent is the most important thing. I still don't love Irving and his attitude and the way that things went down last season, but I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I think Nets fans have got to be willing to do the same. I mean, how do you feel about Kyrie Irving